Hello, everyone. We're back. Great to be back. Today we have a few subjects we're going to cover, but we're going to begin with success in training. When I'm saying success in training, I'm relating this to any individual who is focusing on some sort of fitness, sporting, or performance-based goal. It may be someone who's preparing for a half marathon, because those are very in vogue right now. You may be a athlete, you might be a regular gym goer working on your general holistic fitness, cardiovascular fitness, muscular development. You may even be participating in something in which you are just healing, fixing, and correcting your body. So if we could just go back to reiterating what I've seen in the gym, in my 20 years in the gym, in my years of training, in the thousands of people I've connected with, what the essential ingredients of success are for anyone in the gym or entering a training protocol. So I'm going to touch on these points, Jay, and then you and I will just have a few discussions, bro?
Cool. Let's go.
Cool. Great. So I'm going to go in order from most important. Now, they're all important, but I'm just going to start with the most important, and I'm going to keep my list pretty brief today, actually. But the number one thing, and it's going to sound like a broken record, it's going to sound very boring, is consistency. And despite the simplicity of it, it's so brutally simple. But the most important thing for anyone to achieve any success is consistency. So let's talk about what consistency is first. Number one, it is, for the most part, subscribing to the allotted amount of sessions that you plan to do. For the most part, that's actually all it is it's this, to achieve what I want to achieve, I have to turn up this often to do the thing. It's just achieving the minimum effective dose to move you closer to your goal. So for example, if I'm conducting myself in a strength, I want to get stronger, and I want to ensure that I train my whole body. And I've determined that to begin with, I'm going to train my whole body 3 times per week. Consistency would be defined as turning up a minimum of 3 times per week to effect said exercise. And this is going to sound boring and unsexy and unprofound, but I've run gyms for a few years, and as I say, I've interacted with thousands of people, and I can safely say without a doubt that the most successful people are still, and when I say success, those who make the greatest progress, change, or development are those who literally just turn up. And it's not interesting. Here we are, 2024. We've learned all the science about training and performance and well-being and development, and we're still telling people that they just need to show up. That's where we're at, and it's still an important message. I know it's boring, but again, we're social and psychological creatures. So at a first principle, the reason why humans are not consistent is because at our core, we are not consistent. That's my opinion. My opinion is that the core human nature is inconsistent. It's inconsistency. So to be very consistent is probably an abnormal trait or an abnormal behavior. An example of someone who's very consistent was someone who achieves something, because the high performers or the athletes have a great deal of disciplined consistency. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah. Well, I know habit is usually the first thing that comes to mind when you think about why people aren't consistent, because you need to instill a habit, but a habit only comes by when you do something enough times for it to be the path of least resistance. The thing that you're going to do, whether or not you think about it or not.
Yep.
But then the thing that I really start thinking of when it comes to going to the gym, and a reason for why people aren't consistent with it, is because the action itself of exercising is not connected to reward. So we'll have small rewards, like you'll get the endorphins, say like going for a run, or you'll see strength gain or muscle gain over a long period of time. But it's not direct. Like when typically, if you're going to exercise in a tribal setting, you're not going and lifting a rock repetitively over and over and over again for the sake of getting bigger. You're going out and you're biffing some shit at an animal, or like fighting another. Like, say if you're a guy, might be fighting another guy over some sort of resources. Like you're actively doing something for purpose.
You kill the animal and then there's food. So or you cut the tree down and there's lumber. Or you sow the garden and you can see the work. So there's, in many aspects of our existence, there has been direct observable result for the action or the energy of input. I agree.
Yeah. So your behavior would be what drives. Well, the habit is just to instill behaviors that lead to your longevity or the success of your bloodline. So if you do have a bunch of trees nearby that are going to help stoke a fire to keep you warm at night, to keep the animals away, then you're going to be chopping down trees every single day, and you're going to get big and strong from swinging that axe, or from however it is that you collect logs back in the day when we didn't have all these tools.
And we're going to find it hard to continue to pursue something unless we're I suppose we need to connect with a simpler short-term sensation, Jay, right? So our bodies aren't actually going to change much. And if you're focusing on strength gain, you're going to be measured by your output or your ability to produce force, and that can take time. But in the interim, I suppose it would be good if people could just actually focus on how they feel. So it's very uncommon for someone to leave a training or exercise session not feeling good in some metrics. So positively exerted, positively stressed, a little bit of endorphins running, so to speak, because I totally agree, particularly if an individual is not very responsive to exercise, so someone who hasn't done a lot of sport or training historically, the adaptations are going to be slow. You're not going to get jacked up quick. If only, that's right. And that's why we see a massive rise in the popularity of the marketing of weight loss based systems and protocols, because you can starve someone and make them do any exercise and they lose weight. It's also a very mentally, physiologically, and psychologically crippling issue to be very overweight. We know what that does to the psyche, particularly in a time where people are incredibly conscious of themselves in relation to the social media or social environment. So those things are very saleable. But again, I just want to impress the people that if all you did was turn up to the gym and go for 5 minutes on the treadmill, and when each time you turned up, you added a minute, you would actually get some sort of directional improvement over time. Even like if it was above like the amount of output that you had done yesterday or before. And also, if you're doing a cardiovascular goal, if you have a strength goal, a power goal, a sporting goal, a technique goal, just consistently turning up and doing something will make progress. And you could be athletically gifted and be utterly inconsistent, and your eventual progress it's just going to be very limited. So yeah, I thought I'd touch on that one.
I'll have another one before we move on in regards to consistency, because we're coming up to New Year's and there are going to be a lot of people flooding the gym.
New Year, new me.
Yeah, New Year, new me. Yeah,
New Year, shit to me.
You physically wounded me because you go too hard
Yeah.
in the first session or the first 1 or 2 sessions, and then you're absolutely rooted for like the next week or two. Because just like everything, we like to go all in, and then we suffer the consequences after the fact.
Yeah. In New Zealand, we still, I wouldn't like, I think we're better, but it's almost like, it's not that we binge, so to speak, but I suppose it's almost like binge season. It's a binge season because it's not about like binge drinking. It's actually a binge season. It's where there's gluttony all around. There's excessive drinking, excessive eating, and excessive sitting around. Like I know some people are very active, but the active, healthy people are not who we're communicating with. They're always fine. You never have to worry about those. We're communicating to those who are struggling to bring light to their habits, or are struggling with unconscious patterns, or struggling with a condition that they find themselves in, which has been set in motion from a long time ago, right? Well, they've just lost a bit of control. So, binge season. Where are we at? November the 7th. Yeah, I mean, I don't party or drink much, but even for me, my social calendar is starting to have a few blips. We've got Beer Fest in Dunedin. I mean, what the hell? Like, need I say more? Like, what
else are you going to do at Beer Fest?
What do you do at Beer Fest? You drink as much piss as you can and eat stacks of food, and it's just going to be like chips and fried shit, and and it's summer. So what's New Zealanders' favourite foods in summer, Jay? Name a couple for me. Fish and chips, bro. At the beach, and ice creams.
And we powered out some ice cream.
Love them myself, bro.
It helps that we had good ice cream.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we could have American ice cream, But yeah, we do have we do have very good quality ice cream. But I mean, anyway, block number 1, consistency. Number 2, this is going to sound crazy. These are in order, guys. The second most important thing for success in any protocol is effort. So effort is just being defined as your personal perceived output and your personal let's say the personal intensity and energy you put into said training. So consistency is great, but if you turn up and every day you just did the same thing, we didn't do more, or we didn't push ourselves harder, then we have no reason for our body to adapt. So the key mechanism for an adaptation is going to be the stimulus. So is the stimulus more or greater, or forcing my body to do something that it previously has not experienced, challenging my threshold, putting a new demand on my body. So effort is going to be the second one, in my opinion, Jay. So in all my years, number 1, consistency, but number 2 has to be effort. Now, I'm not saying that you go in and go hard. I'm not saying that at all. That's another mistake people make, is they've done fuck all, and then they turn up and they go really hard, and their body's just shocked, and they feel they're just in pain, and they haven't approached it intelligently. So what I am saying is effort should be appropriate, and effort should steadily increase over time. So the amount of effort we put into our sessions should increase over time. As we get a little fitter, stronger, and resilient, we will actually be able to improve the amount of effort we put into those sessions. And I'm not even suggesting we go, in some cases, I'm actually suggesting we start very moderately and build that effort. But effort as a metric is very important. So the amount of energy and intensity we put into the work that we do.
To lead into the progressive overload.
Correct. Yeah. with progressive overload, forced stimulus-based adaptations, Jay, right? If I don't put, if my body is only ever experiencing the 100 kilos on my back and I never give it an opportunity to either do more repetitions, hold that, stabilize that load longer, stabilize that load through a larger range of stability, stabilize it through more flexions, more muscular contractions, then if I don't at least change a feature of the stimulus, right? So progressive overload can be defined as time under tension. It can be defined as, density, those many, many factors, bro. But some feature of it has to be engaged with from an effort perspective for us to get those changes, hey, bro?
Yeah, I'm gonna go from the other end of
Yep.
Go to the extreme end. Instead of being
too
focused on being careful, I know a lot of people who train at the gym for years.
Yeah.
And they don't do, but they're too careful. They're too careful. Right. They jump onto the weight and they're like, oh, this feels a bit heavy. But they don't actually realize how much strength or how much latent ability they have within them. Like something that I like to talk about with a lot of people I train with is there is a 75% threshold with the amount that you can lift. So I find this myself, when I get to about 75%, the weight that I'm holding feels really heavy. Like, oh, this doesn't feel as good as it usually does. But the reality is, once you cross that 75% threshold, it gets light again. Because now you're starting to recruit more muscle. You're starting to fire up your nervous system. It's just the body is lazy. It doesn't want to do any more than it has to.
Energy conservation, bro. The body does not use any more. It uses the minimum amount of energy possible to finish the job. It's energy conservation. That's one of the key principles to high intensity and max effort training, Jay. So Louis Simmons, the one of the prime reasons for a max effort training is because if we don't actually push the body to its approximate limit, your ability to calculate approximate efforts or percentage efforts is actually not accurate. It's actually not accurate. And you actually have to push your nervous system and your body to its limits in order to force it to achieve a maximum effort of output. Number two, you can have maximum effort at maximum effort repetition days, Jay. Like, in a good example of that is, you might have a program in which you're calculated, I could probably do 5s at this. However, what you'll find is that if you have the right spots and assistance and forced work, often individuals are then achieving 8 to 10 repetitions of that same weight. So again, people's ability to produce maximum effort, their perceived idea of what that load or challenge is usually very wrong. A good example is, like, I was training one of the boys the other day, Jay, and he was doing a training system of 3x3. Okay, looking pretty good on the bench press. So the bench press is a great exercise if the individual's safe to do forced work, just because you can really assist in the positive phase quite nicely if we're doing the moderate rep stuff. Anyway, I assisted him on his last set. Lo and behold, he does 10 reps, right? So he's working at a load in which he believes appropriate for 3 sets of 3, which in my opinion is heavy. I'm going to go and make him do 10 reps at that weight. What does that tell you about the weight he was using for 3x3, Jay?
Poorly calculated.
Poorly calculated. He's underworking. So again, he's probably thinking he's at 87.5 to 90%. It's like, well, you just did 10, so no. Yeah.
Yeah, got a wee bit more to squeeze out there.
You're totally right. Yeah. Also, number two, we live in a sedentary society where labor and effort is now uncommon. So people's threshold and perspective of effort is very low. So, additionally, I'm actually starting to go more bro science as I get older, Jay, only because everyone is becoming so sciencey and lazy that we're almost like using science to justify our lack of effort and intensity. There's something to be said, right? Like for the the just going hard and the self-limiting behaviors around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
regardless of all the apparent science out there, I haven't seen the number of strong people increase at the gym.
Yep. Now, I mean, online, I'm seeing a lot of outliers, right? Online, that's fine. You're always going to see more outliers. If you have, back in the day, if you had like 1 million powerlifters worldwide, and now there's 20 million powerlifters worldwide, when you increase the amount of people by a factor of 20, you're going to have a lot of people who stand out. But the average participant is not exactly, is not increasing. I would argue, Jay, that when I was younger, when I first started training at the gym, it would have been 2004. I would argue that the average person that was training at the gym in 2004, when I was there, the average person was probably a little slimmer and a little fitter and a little bit more muscular than today. We've just seen a giant cultural, social shift to the gym, far more people. So absolutely, we've got more people and we've got more in the upper 1% performers, so to speak.
Yeah, but there's a lot more bodybuilders, I can say that much.
A lot of bodybuilders, mate. Everyone's a bodybuilder, Jay. No one's doing competitions, they're all just bodybuilders.
Yeah. Just at the beach.
That's right, guys. Just to let everyone know who's watching, yeah. A bodybuilder is defined as someone who competes in a bodybuilding show. So if you don't compete, you're not a bodybuilder. You're just getting big. You're not a bodybuilder. Right? I think as a result of social media and messaging and cultural shifts, I think we're seeing more physiological dimorphic communication. Okay? So let me unpack that. What are all the girls doing in the gym, Jay?
Yeah, making their ass big.
Making their ass big and lifting. And what are all the boys trying to do?
Make their chest big.
Bodybuilding, right? So
shoulder.
Now when you and I were younger, bodybuilding's always been popular for young men, but it's just that the chemicals and the absurdities of physiques is increasing. So young men are unconsciously just trying to make themselves big to appear more masculine, and women are, due to the hyper-masculine environment that we've kind of encouraged in women through masculine feminism, we have women now in the weights room doing all the lifting and building the big bums because Kim Kardashian told them to. So we've got a combination of cultural zeitgeist infiltrating people's perspectives, but then we've also got cultural social dimorphism. In other words, we've got this big separation of like women going from being like slim and feminine to like strong with giant asses, and then boys going from being like men to what almost look like kind of pimply wussy boys with big muscles. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's bound to be both a reflection of, say, the excess exposure to phytoestrogens or the endocrine disruptors, and the social media thing. Because we're just so we're so obsessed. All we can see is just people who are better, bigger, stronger than us all day long. Like we're going to push all our motivations to increase in those fields of the gym. Going to drive up. Yep.
Anyway, that was we've gone a bit off track there, but that was effort, guys. So number 2 is effort. Number 3. Now this is also very important. And again, like we're not getting into the the hardcore technicalities of things, but monitoring or tracking. So number 3, the third most important thing is tracking what you do. if I'm attempting to develop strength, I need to track that over the weeks and months, that I'm adequately increasing the repetitions, the total sets, the total reps, and the total loads that I'm doing over time. I need to track that and write it down meticulously so I know what I've done and I know where I'm going, so I can actually track what the change, because you could do strength training for some time and not look different, but the numbers don't lie, right? So the numbers don't lie. Additionally, if I'm attempting to gain some cardiovascular function and I've chosen to do that by running, well, I need to measure the runs that I'm going on, the time, the distance, frequency. So just simply writing down what you've done and doing a little bit more than last time over time yields a significant benefit. And again, I know for a fact 75% of the people that come in my gym, Jay, don't turn up consistently, don't train that hard, and don't fucking track what they're doing. But then they wonder why they, oh my God, I don't look like a TikTok model yet. What's going on? What's going on here? Fucking doing arms 5 days a week and my legs are small.
At least that's consistent.
Yes. And although I'm joking about it, the guy who comes in here and trains arms consistently every day, props to you. Whatever fucking gets you in, good on you. You're turning up and you're getting it done. Yeah. And maybe you're an arm wrestler, so I don't know, right? Maybe
just building Mickey has forearms.
Maybe you're an arm wrestler, or you're just telling everyone that you're an arm wrestler so you can justify your doing curls every day.
Popeye.
But anyway, tracking. So one thing I do is obviously if I have a client, we always track what we're doing. It's so simple. And all it requires us to do is write down what we've done and ensure that the next session continues toward the direction that we're trying to achieve. I'm trying to get stronger. Well, I need to build up your competency at greater loads over time. I'm trying to get more muscular. Well, we actually would focus on strength first, and then we would accompany that with certain intensities and volumes. Number 3, we're trying to get fit. That's kind of lazy word. Well, I'm trying to build up my capacity for a particular task. Okay, we've got to increase your threshold of effort within the confines of the said task. So a few of the boys here, box or fight or do various combat sports. So, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just, are you getting an X amount of rounds skipping per week? Are you getting X amount of rounds on the, are you getting X amount of minutes running per week? Are you getting X amount of rounds on the bag per week? That's your base conditioning, but tracking. If you are consistent in the amount that you are turning up, and I'm not saying turn up consistently for 5 minutes once a week. I'm saying fucking, you got to bloody be reasonable, okay? But if you are consistent and within your sessions you actually try, so effort, and then you monitor what you do, instantly you are in my opinion, you're in the top 20% of all gym goers just because you do those 3 things. Believe me, you're above anyone who goes to, and this is my opinion, you're above anyone who goes to a Les Mills fitness class, okay? Like a group fit. Because the group fit is a group class, you can't monitor the amount of reps you did week to week. You're just following the instructor. You're above, in my opinion, you're above an F45 class. Because although the F45 classes have a program, the program is just a circuit determined by like time and rotation. So the quality of the tracking is very poor. So anyone who does those 3 things, you're now in the upper 20% of individuals at the gym, right? So, any comments on tracking, Jay?
Motivation is a key component of tracking, because
Okay.
if you're doing something for a long period of time, and you've got a result you're trying to achieve, but you're not going to see that, like we talked about before, you're not going to see that result day to day. You need to have tracking to see that you're actually going in the right direction. Otherwise, you could be spinning your tires for weeks or months and not even know.
There are individuals, Jay, so if we're looking at something from a performance and health perspective, you could be a little bit overweight, and you could develop a huge amount, and I mean a huge amount of strength, a huge amount of improved mechanics and mobility, a huge amount of capacity and conditioning, and not appear very different. Okay, so what I mean by that is they are less aesthetic. So we communicate our goals. Humans communicate very aesthetically. We like to see change. But if an individual's getting stronger, moving better, feeling better, functioning better, can do more, that's far, far more important than an appearance. But again, this all boils back to social and sexual communications, biological communicating. We're so concerned with the appearance of positive change versus true positive change. So again, in my opinion, those things are far, far more important and far more valuable and far more interesting. And so, yeah, they can appear, they might not look a certain way. So, as you say, like actually paying attention to those things, like finding ways to observe them, will be very motivating for us. So, my bench press went from 80 to 90 kilos, amazing. Or I was really struggling to get my squat to the right angle, and now I can squat below my hip line comfortably. Or so little things like that. Those are really important. Or injuries, bro. I've got a bad shoulder from rugby or sport or throwing, whatever, and actually doing some meaningful work and being in less pain with good function in my shoulder. I mean, those are pretty damn meaningful.
Yeah, but it could be a 5 out of 10 on the pain rating one week, and then next week you might be down to a 3 or 4, and that's a meaningful improvement.
That's right. Yeah. But the wisdom to know that the most meaningful goals are often non-aesthetic, and tracking helps us quantify change in many other ways, which are really great for us. But yeah, that is tracking. After tracking, do you have anything else to add on that before I move on, Jay?
There is the rest and recovery category.
Yep.
Which, that comes down later down the track.
I agree. I like, again, we'll quickly touch on many other facets which we know are important, but I suppose I'm just focusing on this hierarchy because because how many people are at the point where they're like training so effectively and intensely that they need to optimize recovery, and the answer is less. So it's like, you're not training hard enough to justify focusing on your recovery yet. It's like, sure, totally right, but maybe we'll do a podcast. We'll do one on recovery, bro. What do you reckon? And we'll like today's one, we will start with the hierarchy of recovery and start with the things that we know are of absolute importance. But for those of our, because unfortunately most of our friends are probably actually active people, so we're probably going to struggle to reach the people maybe who are less active. But that could be good. That could be good. But
I can tell you, number one would be exogenous testosterone.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimate recovery.
But yeah, I mean, again, everything although we're putting in this hierarchy, I suppose We know that recovery is important. We know that mechanics is important. But so my last one. So we've got consistency, we've got effort, we've got tracking. The last one I want to touch on is, in my opinion, so like we're talking in order, and I know it's going to sound crazy, but is I'm going to just say technique. Now I know I've put it a bit late. Again, we've got to remember that they're all important, and they all, in an ideal world, we're doing all these things together. But again, having the perfect technique doesn't mean shit if you're not turning up, you're not trying, you're not measuring what you're doing. I don't care. I'm like, I don't fucking care about your technique. Your technique is important, built on a pyramid of consistency, which means that I've adapted. I've got a bit of endurance, cool. You can show up to do work, great. You can put in effort, great. So you can track what you do, and now we can refine what you do. So technique being how we do things. So obviously it's important. Technique is going to ensure that we do things safely. It's going to ensure that we do things symmetrically or asymmetrically correctly to keep our bodies in balance. Technique is going to ensure we move our joints and bodies through an adequate motion or range to unlock, open up, and improve our bodies. And technique for a lot of our things might also allow our bodies to move and develop correctly. So that's my number 4, Jay.
Yeah. It's definitely important, but you're right in saying like you need to have that consistency and everything first, because technique takes a while. Sometimes it can take years to develop a movement
a long time.
Way.
Yeah.
So it's not something that we need to be too concerned about on the first day. Okay. Yeah, you don't want to be doing things wrong, but you want to not be so anal about it that you just stop going altogether because your body just isn't working the way you want it to.
That's right. It's like, I like to look at physical development in children, Jay, right? So a good example of technical development is just watch a child through the years of sport. So my daughter has been doing gymnastics since she was 5 years old. She's 9.5, going on 10. Now, do you think she was going to do fucking flips and handstands perfectly? Super unlikely. But the main thing to do was to just get her doing what, within reason, what they're capable of doing, which would lead to some development. So initially, the things that they got the kids doing was mostly just fun, just getting them active and very, very basic stuff. And then over time, you just have what's, progressions, bro. So they add in these little things, they just make it a tiny bit harder, but always within a bandwidth of their ability and capability. So technique is that very long arm thing. And here we are 4.5 years later, developed massively, but loads more to learn, bro. Loads more to learn. The same might go for rugby. We don't get the little boys, first year rugby, we don't get them going hard in the tackles. It's a bit unsafe, and they need to build up technique. So the first thing you get the little boys doing before they can play a game is catching a ball, right? So if they can't pass or catch a ball, you can't play rugby, right? And the second thing you need to do is you need to get them running around enough so they can actually run for a game. So they need to get fit enough to run for a game. So probably going to drop the ball and do terrible passes and probably get all tired. But the minimum requirements for you to play the game is fitness and then catching and passing skills. And then, you usually get the kids playing touch rugby. So you start with touch. And then over the years, you develop tackling. Why? Because tackling is actually very hard as a skill, and it's a bit unsafe. And you also want to limit the amount of kind of knocks and impacts that little people get, because you're going to accumulate things like concussions and things over the years. But yeah, again, technique is very important. But as you say, it's like when you're looking at peak athletes, they're like essentially often they're 20 years of technique development, So it doesn't make sense for us to require perfect technique before doing something.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
You can usually see it in the gym as well. Those who are lifting ridiculous weights, they tend to have a pretty good technique. There's only the occasional person that you'll see chuck a silly weight on their back, and they'll do it once, but you won't see them again because they've probably injured themselves.
Correct.
Realize that it wasn't a good idea.
Yep, that's right. Like, there are agreed. It's hard to develop, significant strength. It is hard without some technique. And when I say technique, that means a mechanically correct and safe way of develop. Come in. Where were we? Yeah, I totally agree, Jay. Like the guys in here who are doing significant weights, they've had to adapt their body over a long period of time. If they were doing it unsafely, they would have had too many injuries to allow them to continue to adapt over time. They've also probably learned a fair bit about their body, so they have a good understanding of how their body works to allow them to achieve those things.
There's a considerable amount of movement efficiency as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They've trained those patterns with a great deal of effort and analysis for a long period of time because it's very hard to achieve those things under those loads without those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Say like chucking 100 kg on their back might feel like they're going to snap in two, whereas someone who is slight in stature like myself can chuck it on my back and it feels like nothing's moving just because you're activating the right muscles just the right amount, so it feels efficient. I'm not doing any more than I have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel clean, relatively clean anyway.
Yeah. No restrictions. So that's my number 4. That's my 4, and that's my order. The individual who can, number 1, turn up consistently, B, make effort, 3, track progress, programming, and 4, focus and develop and refine technique. Again, in my opinion, that takes you right up until I'd say the top 10%. So you're in the 10% of individuals who participate at the gym now. You've actually mindfully tried to improve how you do things for both your body, correct application of muscles and safety, measuring what you're doing with effort over time, with repetition, with quality repetitions that turning up. So that's those are my big ones, man, and that effort. And so that's really all I want to communicate today. We're in November. We're going to have a lot of people turning up to start on the gym or the summer gym thing, and maybe they'll be we also have a very inconsistent time coming up with a lot more Christmas parties, summer celebrations, barbecues, piss-ups, New Year's and Christmas. So reiterating, it's like, well, okay, doesn't mean you can't consistently exercise, and doesn't mean you can't make an effort, doesn't mean you can't track things, and consider, how you're doing things. So, that's all I wanted to touch on today, bro. Hopefully someone gets some value out of that. I know it's going to sound a bit obvious and simple to most, but what I want people to actually do is just okay, let's say you are gymming, just ask yourself, how many times have you said you're going to commit to your training to achieve a goal? And are you actually consistently hitting that target? If you're taking off 1 day per week and you're only meant to train 3 days a week, you're missing 33% of all your training events per week. That's an insane amount, that's a huge contributor to your desired outcomes. If you were to take 33% out of someone's work week, or take 33% out of someone's study, or 33% out of some other metric, that would have a significant impact on the outcome of things, right? In terms of effort's important as well. As we said, if you're only putting in 70% effort, whereas you could be putting in 80% effort, well, you're going to miss out on, a significant amount of stimulus and therefore progress, therefore development, your ability to actually work hard. If you're not tracking things, you are leaving them up to randomness. That's all I'll say on that. Like, what gets measured gets managed. And lastly, technique. Technique is just going to keep your body safe over time and also just allow your body to develop correctly over time. That's all. I'll leave it there.
Nice.